The horned purple monster collapses, drained of strength, barely moving as he stares at the man before him who stands silent with a sword and says he, the hero, has defeated him. This is impossible. The man puts the sword behind his back, sparks appear, and Pierre tells the Demon King Madeline that he held out for a long time. A pillar of light strikes his sword, and the Demon King tells him this is not the end, that even after his death the Demon Kings will come for him. Wielding the Ragnarok caliber, the protagonist strikes the Demon King, who screams in pain and declares the fight will last for eternity. Kneeling, he stares at the hole in the ceiling and thinks it's over because he finally managed to pacify the Demon King. If this were any RPG he'd ever played, the credits would be rolling by now. A few years ago he was hailed as a hero. Now he is finally free and the boy is happy, and the people watching him say that at last the brave man's victory has come. In the kingdom of Hajimano, protagonist Shoto walks with his group, while people shout that the great hero has returned victorious, and his teammates smile behind him. King Zamaisel himself is the first to rejoice at the hero's arrival and tells them their actions have saved the world. The king approaches the main character, puts his hands on his shoulders, and announces he deserves a special reward, his daughter, while the man looks on awkwardly. The king announces that the boy will be married to Princess Trappy. The girl looks displeased at first, but when she sees the hero she smiles sweetly. Taking the man's hand, the girl asks him to help make the kingdom better and gloomily adds that it will be him with his deadly weapon and her. Raising her hand, the princess announces that she and he will stand at the head of the kingdom and unite this world, and the armored knights look at her in surprise. The crowd shouts, "Long live the kingdom of Hajimno." The main character thinks everyone is overjoyed and expects the story to end with a wedding to the princess, who, though only a princess, is highly respected. The protagonist signals a stop and asks if he can return to his world, and the girls and the king smile grimly. The protagonist remembers sitting on his bed playing games. Now he feels out of place in this world. One day he was suddenly called here. They declared him a hero, sent him to kill the Demon King, and drove him out of penniless. The king offered to take the stick and fight the Demon King, and even the princess called him a ragamuffin. Every day the boy fought and did nothing else. Day after day, the constant fighting wore him down. The king looks at him and sighs. The king asks the man to confirm that the magic that called him here is a one-way ticket with no way back. Sadly, he says there's no way to bring the man back this way, and the man feels uneasy. Their country is strong because of its heroes, so there is no point in trying to send them back, and the man knows it would be a waste. The king tells the protagonist to forget it and marry Tropia, saying they will make the kingdom great together. The girl stands and smiles. Realizing he was deceived because they never intended to send him back, the protagonist still wants to return to Earth. He remembers those times, the phone, online games, trips to the konbini, lying messy on the bed eating sweets and spinning gacha, then waking in the morning thinking he would be late for classes while looking out his bedroom window. He often remembered that he had finished school but still had no job. He laughed nervously, said there was nothing to worry about, and said he wanted to return it all, but the king and princess remained silent. The man worries that if he's stuck here now, something must be happening on Earth. The king says he understands him perfectly, but asks about getting engaged to the princess. The woman calls him trash, and the king asks whether she means him. The protagonist thinks there is no way to have fun here. There are no manga or anime. His favorite series has probably already ended. The king smiles and says nothing can be done. The king turns to the knights and tells them to listen and start preparing for the banquet, and they obey and run off. If the king announces at the banquet that the hero Shoto is engaged to the princess, Shoto will not accept it, because he sees they are trying to present him with a fait accompli and he will not allow it, so he runs but someone stops him. Angry, the princess asks him why he did that, calling it a sign of disrespect. She asks the man if he is unhappy with her, then watches him close his eyes, still thinking Tropia is not a bad person at all. The girl thinks that if he proves too difficult she can cut off his legs, and with heroes on their side, nothing else matters because she will protect the country, and the man, amazed by her frightening look, does not know what to say and turns to her. The protagonist tells the girl it's all impossible, and she instinctively looks at the man, holding back her anger. Despite her anger, he thinks she'll finally understand him, so he apologizes and leaves. The king tells everyone the hero is about to escape, and they must catch him, so one person summons a magic storm, and another casts a magic net. The main character in the web novel asks how this level of resistance compares to the Demon King and his general's attacks. This is only a light breeze. A girl with a cleaver walks toward him, and sensing an aura like the Demon King's, he runs away. The main character uses the high-speed movement Magic Bitish and flies a long distance through the wall. The king realizes he has escaped and says they must chase him, and the girl realizes it too. Still, the girl vows she will make Shoto's hero hers as she peers through the hole in the wall. The main character flies through the air and says he thought returning to Earth was impossible. After defeating the Demon King, the hero fled the kingdom, and this could be the start of his wandering, a scenario you can also find at the end of many old RPGs. Looking down, the man sees a river. Needing rest, he neutralizes his magic and falls. He falls to the ground, realizing his magic control is inaccurate, and if his level had been lower, he would have died. Standing up, he decides he should drink some water. Now he thinks it is very clean, but someone stops him. The horned girl tells him the water is not drinkable and must be filtered first and then boiled, yet she is surprised he drank it anyway. A sudden stomachache makes him fall to the ground. The ogre man asks the girl what happened to Katrina, and she says something bad happened. Worried, the man asks the boy if he drank the river water, and the boy says it is quite possible. They do not know what is in it, so the girl goes to fetch herbs to counteract the poison. Until now, the main character had only bought and drunk water and didn't know what to do, but now he's wiser, so he gets up and uses magic to neutralize the poison himself. The man looks at it, calls it amazing, and wonders if he is a wizard. If the pursuers suddenly hear that the man is here, there will be no end to the problems. Smiling, the main character says he's just a guy who can do magic, and the Ogreman asks about that ability. The guy realizes the man is not hostile, but he still needs to be careful as the man looks at him thoughtfully. With herbs in hand, the girl ran up and told them she had found an antidote, and they both looked at her in surprise. When she asks if the stomach is already gone, he wants to say he used magic, but notices wounds on her hands. A man fakes being sick and urgently asks for this herb. He takes it and says it helped him. It saved him. She asks if the herb works so quickly, and he says he's someone who gets immediate relief from medicine. In any case, she's glad he's feeling better. Noticing the girl was hurt because of him, the protagonist touches her hand. She says it's just a scratch, nothing serious, but the protagonist uses recovery magic to heal her instantly and the wounds close. Surprised, the girl admires that he can use magic, while he says he only does a little. He realizes that if that's true, he didn't need the herbs, since magic can neutralize poisons, but the man denies it. Lying to her that he's the kind of person who sometimes can't get rid of the poison, he suddenly wants to say something. The Ogreman asks if the man is leaving now, and the protagonist asks him to listen carefully to what he has to say. The protagonist waves his arms and says he is just wandering aimlessly. The ogres look at him in bewilderment. All three of them burst into loud laughter. The man says he's afraid to leave the boy alone because the boy might eat a poisonous mushroom and die, so he invites him home and says he will need his help. Grinning, the main character asks him if he's afraid to invite someone he's just met to visit, when the man suddenly grabs him by the head. The man places a hand on him and says these words come from someone who foolishly drank river water and rolled on the ground in pain, but the other man disagrees. The girl says her father is determined and self-reliant, and the main character agrees. Smiling, the main character says self-sufficiency is a trait he needs for his new life. Russ, the lumberjack, shakes the other man's hand and says he will be happy to help them while his daughter Katrin stands beside him. The main character tries to say he is a hero, but stumbles and backs down while the girl looks at the guy questioningly. Realizing he must give up being a hero, he will from now on live away from battles. A man loudly announces he is Shoto and that he is going to the mountains for the first time. He is very happy to meet him, and Katrin and her father are also happy to meet him. The three move forward together and start a calm new life. The man is amazed by the first mushroom he finds. Katrin says it is deadly poisonous. Deep in the forest stood a wooden house, and beside it a stump with an axe, marking the start of the main character's new, quiet life. Catherine laughs at how nervous Shoto is, as he asks what he's supposed to do anyway. Breast points at a tree stump and asks Shoto if he has ever chopped wood, and Shoto, looking thoughtful, says he's only seen it in anime, leaving Breast not understanding what it is. The man asks the boy to watch closely, and demonstrates how easily he chops wood. The protagonist says it was amazing, but the man disagrees. Now the man wants to try and he has the right tool, so he pulls out his sword. This sacred sword, ex-Ragnarok caliber, was made by the gods to pacify the Demon King and can fire a magic beam. Surprised, the man asks whether he plans to chop wood with a sword, and the protagonist just has to try. For him, chopping a log is like cutting soft tofu. The main character raises a sword and strikes, sending a shockwave that slices through the mountain and leaves everyone stunned. As this happens, the breast falls to the ground, Catherine screams, the man swears, and he notices the girl losing consciousness. The main character catches her in his arms and is struck by how soft and pleasant she smells. Now awake, the girl asks the guy what just happened, and he says it was just time magic rewinding. The protagonist rewinds time slightly. After that, Breast says he feels something happened recently. The protagonist explains his thoughts to him. He thinks skills and upgraded gear don't help at all in everyday life. The protagonist grabs an axe and says he's taking revenge, drives it into a tree and splits a log, but the two halves fly straight into his eyes, making him scream. The protagonist says it's fine because it doesn't affect him at all, and Catherine stares at the man in shock. Russ says this happens to beginners who try too hard, and you can chop wood even with the force of a Catherine. The girl asks the man to keep watch. The main character watches and thinks that at Brust's house, where he and his daughter take care of everything, he will cope. The girl successfully demonstrates chopping wood, and the main character is surprised. He tells her it was both surprising and amazing, and that she smells nice. Brest puts his arm around the main character and, smiling, asks if he is doing well. Catherine becomes embarrassed and runs to her room. He wants to say more, and the guy listens. The man admits this is the first time he's talked this long with a new acquaintance and says he likes people like that, while the girl asks her father to stop, but he just laughs. The main character is pleased by the man's remark that he likes people like him. The girl says she'll go and cook something to eat. The man smiles at her, glad she has found a friend her own age. Turning to the other guy, he asks him to keep her company while he is here. Raising his fist, the protagonist says she will take care of her and that he can learn a lot from Catherine, especially how to chop wood. After a while, a stack of chopped firewood has built up behind the main character, and he is working on another log. After a little training, he mastered chopping wood. The skill felt like a high-level monster. After that, wood could be turned into coal, which is used for cooking, heating, and boiling water. Smiling, the main character says it's interesting, and although he's given up the title of hero, he'll keep improving like a novice lumberjack. The man asks about the hero's title, but the boy says nothing. Brest looks at the firewood and says they definitely have enough now. The boy did a great job, and Brest will show him other ways to use the wood, which surprises the boy. Smiling, the main character says that this quiet, unfamiliar life never fails to amaze him. Smiling, he clutches the log and thinks this looks like a challenge. Night is falling. 3 plates of food sit on the table, and the main character looks at them, surprised to see boiled rice. The man starts eating very quickly and says he thought a place so far away would only have meat. The woman asks how he can eat with such agility. Showing his empty plate, the protagonist asks for more. The girl agrees, and Russ says he seems to like the spices Catherine added. The mantle has to get moving. They're having stew today, and without Shoda they'd spread it over 3 days, but now they can polish it off in no time. The girl asks whether the boar he caught was large enough. Fresh meat is best for stew. Catherine says the broth, the fat, and everything are not wasted. Steam rises from the plate. The man notes that Catherine cooked the meat so deliciously it smells like an animal. They start eating quickly. The herbs seem to give the dish an unusual aroma, and it tastes very good. The protagonist asks for more. The man says there are 7 plates, but you wouldn't think he could eat that much. Shipper explains it takes a lot of effort because of magic and skills. A man says something in a language Catherine doesn't know and explains that in his country it means, "Thank you for the food, it was very tasty." Grateful, the girl thanks the guy for eating everything. Since Shodo arrived in this world, he has learned many important things. When she sees him walking with a plate, she asks if he is getting more. The main character says he wants to wash the dishes, and the girl tells him there is a barrel of water outside. A man steps outside to search for a barrel of water and notices it is very dark, with only the moon shining. The protagonist walks along a dark street and looks up at the moonlit sky that lights everything around. A couple of days ago, he defeated the Demon King. Today, he came to the palace and left at once. The man washes the dishes and watches the door. Now he sits at the table with a family of ogres, his belly full from stewed meat. Everything changed for Shodo, and it all began when he was summoned into this world. The girl suddenly turns to Shodo, who looks at her questioningly and says they've filled the bathroom and asks if he will go, which surprises the protagonist. Happily, the guy runs off and says he'll go right away, but the girl says they need to figure out how to heat the bathwater. Shodo says if there's water for washing dishes, there's water for the bath. They will heat it outside with firewood. The girl understands this is a good method. The mission to heat the bathwater has begun. The protagonist asks to leave it to him. The man notices his resolve, and the protagonist laughs, saying he'll show how to handle such difficult work easily. She wishes him good luck. He says he's leaving and takes the firewood he chopped himself. He looks at the stove, feels bewildered, and thinks he knows why it is downstairs, but he wonders why the wooden bathroom does not burn. He suddenly sees an iron vat below with boiling water. Once the water is hot, a wooden brush is lowered onto it. He is amazed that it is all happening out in the open. It feels very atmospheric. He quickly pours water, lifts a huge vessel by hand, adds firewood and coals to get a fire going, then uses a fire spell he calls Start Small. Shoto smiles as the wood begins to burn and the water starts to heat up. Meanwhile, the girl climbs onto the bathtub, wearing only a towel. The man decides to watch the fire so he does not get too hot. Now he could boast of his hero skills, but he understands that right now he is not a hero but a boiler maker, and Shoto, the girl, climbs into the bathroom and says it is very warm. Getting into the bathtub, the girl says it is very nice and that she loves taking a bath. Seeing this scene in his mind fills the protagonist with pride. The girl says the water is great. He might have a talent for it. He says it is unexpected. The man keeps heating the water over the fire while saying that. The woman says the water is too hot, and he asks her to wait a second. Acting quickly, the protagonist uses cooling magic. She says she is too cold now, and he looks up to see the girl standing at full height. The man looks at her with obvious pleasure and thinks, just as he expected, that ogre girls have excellent figures. Without warning, she screams, orders him to look away, and pokes him in the eyes with her fingers. Lying on the ground, the boy covers his eyes. The girl calls it vulgar and walks away. He saw something beautiful and will keep it in his heart using his memory skill. Her father suddenly appears and says he is the last one to use the bathroom, so he should go first, and the guy stares at him in shock. The protagonist wakes on a pile of hay inside a house, looks up, sees a ceiling above, and reaches up. A man pours water into a basin, says the weather is always great here and there are no monsters nearby, then starts washing himself with the water. A joyful show announces that civilization has arrived, like being on vacation at a tent camp. Russ stands holding a yoke, tells Shoto he got up early, wishes him good morning, and notices the bucket. Putting the yoke on his shoulders, the man tells the boy he will fetch water because it needs to be collected every morning. You need to go back and forth until the big barrel is full. The man thinks and begins to conjure something. Using the storage magic inventory would mean he can only collect all the water at once. Then the man stops thinking about it and asks Brust to lend him another, and Brust says Katrin has won. Although magic could let him finish everything in 2 counts, he wants to learn to live a quiet life, so he must rely only on his own strength and then shoulders the yoke. The boy tells himself the hero's skills are useless. A man overhears it again and asks about the hero. The boy says it's nothing, he is just Shoto's water carrier now. They arrive at a pond, and the main character is surprised to realize it is the same river where they first met yesterday. The man fills a bucket with water as the main character asks whether it is poisonous and whether they know how to collect drinking water here, and after filling the bucket, he says they do not. He already knew you must boil water before using it, and since drinking water spoils in a day, they make it fresh daily, so he carries and boils the water. Amazed by the division of labor, the protagonist says peaceful life is wonderful, but Brust says he's clearly exaggerating. The man fills a barrel with water and tells the other man they have collected enough. Brust agrees and says there is no need to go anymore. Until today, he handled everything alone. Now that he's on the team, things are 20 times more efficient. The man thinks the number is very high. He thought he had plenty of modesty, but he was wrong. 0 is certainly a lot. The protagonist turns to Brush as a mentor and asks him to do what he wants next. The man asks about the mentor. The man says he spent all this time teaching him a new way to live. He admits he is a poor mentor, and Shoto calls him modest. The main character fills the buckets and suggests going back, while the man helps the guy and asks what it is. The man tells the boy that even though he's short, he's very strong because lifting buckets of water takes strong legs. At first the man says he has a high level, but Brustus does not see how that matters, since Brustus clearly has amazing physical strength. The protagonist realizes Brust and Catcher do not know people have levels, because the concept of levels does not exist here, and Brust turns out to be level 15. The ability the guy gained here is called level recognition. It let him see everyone's level. After watching a trading video, he made steady progress. One man told another he did not have the courage to train that hard. The other replied that he has to lie down from exhaustion every 3 days. The protagonist believes he has reached the highest level, learned many skills, and surpassed every limit, and after defeating the Demon King alone, he is now free. He remembered his comrades, who had tried very hard and reached their limit. The protagonist watches the girl hugging the guy and wonders when they'll start dating. Angry, he realizes he also had a chance, but he was probably quite inexperienced back then. Frost asks the man why he made that face. The main character looks scared and apologizes, saying he has bad memories. The man says different things happen in life, so he won't ask. The protagonist agrees with him that in Brestol's photo he looks young, but has an insightful gaze. Shoto asks why he only feels truly alive now that he has lost everything, and that was what he was thinking about. A man comes up behind him and touches his back. Holding a basket, the girl tells her father and Shoto that breakfast is ready. They head happily to the table. Catherine reports that she added more, especially for Shoto, and the main character is surprised by it. Catherine smiles sweetly, and the main character realizes that her smile warms his heart. The main character says goodbye to his past, welcomes the future, wishes everyone bon appetit, and starts eating. The guy tastes it and says it's delicious. The girl asks him to eat as much as he can. The man says he's as nimble as ever. The diet here is mostly potatoes, but Catherine's stew and bread are both very tasty. The protagonist is about to begin the mission to eat the bun. He says you must cook it before you eat it. The man wonders what it is made of, whether it's wheat, and whether it will be kneaded into dough, then turns to the main character. Catherine waves to the guy and invites him to go with him to dig potatoes, and the guy runs up saying that providing food is a priority. The man says they definitely need to leave because there are more people to feed now. The guy praises her cooking. Catherine says sheepishly it's just boiled potatoes. Smiling, the protagonist thinks she's very cute. Brust asks the man if they convinced him, then pats him lightly on the back, and the man's leg leaves a dent in the ground. This morning Brest was surprised by how strong the guy was, and he said he had been training a lot. A man warns another that if he keeps this up, Catherine will fall in love with him, and the girl is angry with her father. She hits him and screams that she is nothing like that. The blow makes the ground shake, and the protagonist asks if this is the ogre's power. Ogres are several times stronger than humans, so their breasts are probably about as strong as a buffalo's. Thanks to their exceptional physical abilities, they can live even in remote areas. Suddenly, the protagonist wonders why the two of them live in such a remote place. The man says it's time to dig potatoes. He picks up a shovel. He decides it's safer to stay here and avoid drawing attention. If he's suddenly found, problems are unavoidable. The hero who saved the world became a fugitive. Haney also broke off the engagement with the princess, who sneezes and asks him to deliver a letter to the head of the guild, and the man tells her that maybe she should rest. She wonders what kind of nonsense this is, this moron's foreign policy. What is going on inside is incomprehensible. They are on the verge of bankruptcy. There is no way they can relax here. According to the princess, if this Shoto were here, the solution was not to beat around the bush but to threaten him directly. Angrily, the girl grabs the pen and calls him an idiot. Now, thinking it over, the man finds the princess frightening. He senses she will treat him like a tool. A girl draws a man and thinks about him. With the harvest already gathered, the main character picks up the vegetable and says he can make something like tororo from it since it can be eaten raw, and the girl warns him it is poisonous no matter what. Catherine says the poison can only be removed by boiling the potatoes several times or soaking them for a week. The protagonist is surprised at how long that takes. Shoto is convinced the world is full of poisons, and he ate one this morning, so he knows he couldn't survive here alone. Taking Kitrin by the hand, the main character says he feels nothing but gratitude toward Brust and Catherine, and Kitrin says she does not deserve that gratitude. Then the girl laughs shyly, and the guy finds her cute and notices she has very large potatoes. The protagonist says they bought a lot before the potatoes ran out, and Brust tells him not to worry, saying that if he leaves them for a while they will grow back. Shoto understands they are relying only on nature, but he worries about securing a stable harvest and says trying to grow sweet potatoes would be nice. When a man imagines a peaceful life, he thinks of farming and has already tried raising animals, but a boar ruins everything every time. Shoto asks whether this is the same stew, and the man confirms. He says a steady food supply would be great and thinks it over. He says that if they tend the field and chase away the boars that come to him, they will have both fresh meat and a harvest, and the girl is surprised that he plans to sow the field. The main character agrees cheerfully and asks them to leave it to him, confident it will withstand the Demon King's army and that his dream will come true, and the girl asks about the dream. The boy says he wants to eat buns but doesn't know how to make them, and the man and Catherine says they don't know either. Rust warns it won't be easy. A man says a long journey begins with a single step. Catherine offers to help him too. The first step to preparing the ingredients for the buns is creating a perfect field. The man cheerfully announces it's time to begin. At first he calls himself a hero, then a plowman's Shodil. The man says that since he decided to plant a potato field, he can have whichever plot he wants plowed, and the main character is very surprised by this. The boars have already done their work there, which is better than cutting the forest down again. The man says it helped a lot. The protagonist wonders where to start, studies the holes, considers whether the boars made them when they came into the field, and then Bruce knocked them down. After that, the boars turned into stew, so the work of the breasts will not be in vain. Everything in this world is connected. The protagonist picks up a potato and asks whether it's a regular potato. Brust says he once bought it in the village. The potato was plain and they gave it to him for next to nothing, but in the end he could only grow thin potatoes, and even those were eaten by wild boars. The man says he saved some tubers. The other man asks if he means that much to him. Ogres hunt on a whim and are not farmers. Because they trust him, the plowman and Shoto, the main character happily and unexpectedly grabs a basket of potatoes. Realizing it looks more like an ordinary tuber than a sweet potato, he starts laughing. Shoto realizes it's time to use his hero skill. He had been completely useless against the Demon King, but now he swings his potato. The boy uses the gardening lessons he learned in elementary school. That knowledge comes from another world. He tries everything he was taught. He cuts potatoes. Maggie session gay addy birolados. Thinking about how much he wants French fries makes his mouth water. He knows this isn't true. You must cut the tuber into pieces. If you plant it whole, it will produce few shoots and the potatoes will grow poorly. That was Brust's mistake. The protagonist moves, conjures an object with his hand, and spins it to use cutting magic called the space cutter. Using a cutter, he slices the potato into pieces, and if you're not careful, you could tear a hole in space and destroy the world. If Shoto uses his magic carefully, the girl notices his life here will be normal. Surprised, the girl looks at the house, as the main character uses magic to rewind time and offers to go back. The main character asks the girl what happened, because she shouldn't sneak up without being noticed, and the girl asks the guy if he cut the potatoes. An automatic magic field keeps him from noticing nearby enemies and allies. He uses it without thinking, but he did not sense Catherine's presence. The main character thinks about the girl who says she brought him a snack and wishes him well at his job. Struck by Catherine's kindness, the protagonist thinks he would like to marry her and holds a pot in his hands that the girl says is already old. So when he finishes eating, he should break it and scatter the pieces nearby, because the clay will fertilize the soil, while the girl points to the ground with her hand. Catherine says her dad will make her a new potty, and the man inspects it and asks whether Brust did all of this. The girl admits she sometimes feels like anything is possible. She even made her own clothes by hand. She inspects them. Also, clearing is her father's work. In reality, they had to do it all alone. She stands with her back to the man, who begins to say it must have been difficult. Smiling, the main character announces that with 3 of them they will be 10 times stronger. The girl thinks of the number 10 and suddenly starts laughing, and the guy looks annoyed. Happily, the girl raises her hands and tells the guy that when he says that, it makes him feel they will definitely succeed. She says she can't lose to Shoto in this situation. She needs to get back to work and wishes him luck with the field. Wearing a pot on his head, the protagonist asks the girl to rely on him. The pot is empty because the man ate it all, and he says Catherine's cooking fills him with energy. Then he points and says now it is time to cultivate the soil. A man uses magic to mark the area to be plowed, then tosses a clay pot onto it. Using the earthquake magic tremor, the main character causes the earth in the selected cube to move. Next, the main character gains control of his magic and gradually does everything, eventually getting a field. Next, he plants the potatoes a short distance apart, placing each tuber in a hole. He says elementary school gardening lessons should not be wasted. A man laughs, rubs a dirty finger across his face, leaving a mark, and happily announces that for now he is the potato farmer's Shoto. Night falls and Shoto sleeps on the hay, snoring until a sudden squeal wakes him. Suddenly, the protagonist jumps up, shouts that the potato thieves have arrived, then uses speed magic and whizzes off. Suddenly in bed, he sees 2 boars and angrily says that the moment someone tries to dig up potatoes in the field, he will know right away. This is the magic warning siren. The man rubs his hands together and angrily walks toward the boar, telling it he will not let it take his harvest, and the boar prepares to fight. Several boars charge the main character at once, catching him off guard, then they all stop abruptly. It happened because the man used the space-stopping magic cramps, which say that for potatoes to sprout well, the soil must stay soft. Resting his hand on the boar, the main character lifts his leg as the hovering magic feather raises them. He prepares for the blows and tells the boars the law of the jungle is very cruel. Then the sounds of blows and the boar's cries are heard, and he stands over the fallen animals to say they will have a barbecue tomorrow. The main character says to first drain all the blood from the carcass, but perhaps he uses his storage magic inventory, and a black hole appears in the air that he reaches into with his hand. Shoto tosses the boar carcasses into the storage and explains time doesn't pass inside, so the meat will stay fresh. At home, he thinks about how to build a fence that can withstand an attack by thieves, but since that could endanger Brusting Katrin, it's better for him to handle everything himself. In the morning, the main character gets water first and then starts eating. At breakfast, the main character tells everyone that boar came to the field last night, and a man reacts with surprise, calling him very unlucky. The protagonist raises his hand and tells them not to worry because he has already sorted everything out. One man is surprised because Brust didn't hear anything during the night. The protagonist proudly says he's not a bad hunter and can be called a boar slayer, and Brust and Catherine laugh because Shoto changes his nicknames every day. The man asks what's happening with the boars since they need to cut up the meat right away, so the three of them go together, and the main character says he wants to show them something. A man opens his magical space and Borgarchus falls out. Shoto explains this is storage magic he invented, which he calls an inventory. Both are surprised because it is very expensive. Shoto is surprised to find someone else with the same inventory. Brust requests that saw one be placed in the workshop with the same name. When the boy went to kill the Demon King, he had only a stick and no expensive gear from the shop, so he could only ask for a copper knife and a medicinal herb, and now his equipment is either custom-made or a legendary artifact. The man tells the boy that, no matter what, he is exceptionally good at magic. The boars are perfectly preserved, and Shoto realizes they seem to like it. The girl happily tells Shoto it's amazing and wonderful, then the protagonist says he has a request. A man asks the ogres to teach them how to cut up a carcass and turns to Mentor Breast, realizing he called him that again. The man laughs and awkwardly holds his head in agreement. His daughter tells him he looks so cute when he is embarrassed. The father is called cute by his own daughter. Russ tells the man he will show him how he hangs a boar on a tree with a rope, and the main character asks him a lot. Learning how to butcher a boar is very important for Shoto. Knowing how to drain the blood, open the belly, and remove the entrails is part of that. He plans to raise livestock in the future, so this skill will be useful. The protagonist thinks a wild game dish is the essence of a peaceful life, and Catherine notices her father glowing with happiness, all thanks to Shoto, who laughs awkwardly. The girl tells Shoto that her father is always very worried about her. They had to be very careful. She recalls the man asking what would happen when they dug up all the potatoes, and they were actually worried about that too. The man explains how to handle the boar, asks if the other man is watching, and the main character says he is. The girl says her father was very upset about the failed crop and the boars, but it was unexpected that a man who had drunk poisonous river water could lift their spirits. Shocked, the main character points at himself and asks if it's about him, and the girl replies yes and thanks him. The man explains it must be left to dry and asks Shoto if he understood everything. After listening to everything, the protagonist says he did. The patron tells the man she will keep helping him, and surprised, he tries to focus on Brust's explanation while the embarrassed girl prepares to say something. She tells him she and Dad are really happy to have him. Shoto stands there with a serious expression. Convinced he could concentrate, he still forgot what Brust said and had to review his memory magic recording. Meat hangs on ropes, and the man explains to the protagonist that it is hung in the kitchen because the air here is quite dry, and the protagonist listens. Doing this outside in the shade is best, but other animals can eat the meat, so the girl puts it on a wire. The protagonist cuts the meat in half and is surprised by how much fat it contains. Brust says the meat won't be tasty, so it doesn't need to be hung, and the man understands that fatty meat holds a lot of moisture and spoils quickly. The protagonist looks at a piece of meat, asks if he should trim the fat, then admits he cannot do it no matter how strong he is, and Breast and Katrin laugh. The girl goes to the table and asks the guy for a piece. He asks if she plans to throw it away and hands it to her. She opens the cabbage filled with food and drops the pieces inside. The guy looks at her in bewilderment and says this is their lunch. Catherine winks happily and says yes, this is their lunch and everything is ready so they can enjoy it. A man picks up a piece of meat, thinking he does not really like pork. The cooked fat looks like a flower. He tries a bit and is amazed. Suddenly he lifts his trembling hand and shouts that it's very tasty. It's hard to believe, it doesn't taste like fat at all. Katrin and Russ smile at the boy as he explains that if it is done correctly it will curl up right away, and the fat can be used to make candles or a healing ointment, and the boy asks if ointments and candles can be made from it. He is amazed at how much can come from a single boar. This is life. 2 days later, Katrin feels the meat and says everything is as it should be, so the protagonist tastes it and finds it like dried meat and much tastier than what they sell in stores. A man holding a boar skin says that although it is dried it tastes better than fresh. Another man, surprised, asks if it is tanned and asks to see it. Bruce says he will not do it. The girl says she put the meat, and Bruce says he and Katrin will go. Surprised, the boy asks whether this is for the village exchange. Brust tells them to find clothes for him. They will find something suitable for work. The protagonist is surprised by how much they care for him. Brust smiles and says that even with first-class equipment, it is awkward in the fields. Katrin says good clothes last a long time. He thinks good clothes are expensive here because cotton farming is undeveloped. Most people own only 1 or 2 garments, so in summer many wear only underwear. For some reason, that's how it is here. He thinks about it and looks at Katrin. She smiles and says he's staring so intently. He realizes this is why summer is called the time of love here. The main character realizes it's autumn and getting colder, and the man says everything is ready. Slipping on a rough backpack, he says the skins of 3 boars and dried meat should be enough to trade for fabric, and the protagonist is thinking about something. The main character tells Brust there are 3 boars here and says that should be enough, and Brust thinks about it while the other man wonders why he fell silent. The girl insists they must find clothes for Shota. She doesn't want to leave, but they must find fabric. The protagonist realizes that, if you think about it, half-humans like orcs were minions of the Demon King who fought humans, or so people say. Demi-humans are often oppressed in this world, but the protagonist personally fought the Demon King's generals and their subordinates. Most of them were people turned into the Demon King's minions, and they smiled as they attacked their comrades, killing who knows how many. Half-humans are more likely to fall victim to false rumors, and it is easy to see what awaits them. The man says he will go to the village with them, so no one will dare to harm them, and Brust asks how he plans to do that. Shoto gives them a thumbs up and says it's a secret. The man laughs and says if it's him, it might work. All 3 walk into the forest, with the mountains visible in the distance, 2 carrying loads while the man walks lightly. The dangerous road would take an ordinary person a whole day to walk, but the former hero kept pace with the ogre family, and then they sat down to eat together. The protagonist says he will put all their belongings into the inventory now. The man smiles and says their family having a new friend is already a holiday. They will always be happy to see him, even if he only visits occasionally. Katrin happily says they should celebrate, and when they find the fabric, the girl will sew him comfortable clothes, leaving the main character sweetly surprised by their kindness. Arriving at the village, the main character is surprised to find it larger than he expected, with around 100 people living there, and at first he plans to wish them well, but, seeing them, he instead asks what they need. Brust points behind him and explains they came to trade meat and skins. A nearby man says he smells like a country bumpkin and is not fit to trade. Catherine asks him what strange thing he's saying, and the man leans in, saying he should check it out. Awkwardly, the girl turns away and hides behind her father, while the main character behind him grabs the man by the shoulder. The main character then hits the man indiscriminately in the stomach, leaving him doubled over in pain. Lying there choking, he watched Katrin smile as the other man said he had become angry and immediately hit him in the stomach, and he tried to speak. Angry, the man shouts at Shoto that he will pay for this. The protagonist grabs him and uses the horror magic Endless Nightmare. Now he will wander through nightmares for 3 days and handle those who are bothering Katrin. They must leave. At first she watches him in silence, then agrees, and they all move on together. The main character smiles and says this attitude is simply outrageous. Suddenly someone shouts that ogres are here and asks why the demon minions are here, since this is a place for people. People behind are asking why this scum is walking here, and to let them in and let them leave here. A man laughs as he picks up a stone from the ground and throws it at Brust, telling him to go back, but someone's hand suddenly stops the stone. Then the same stone hit the man's face when the main character used the returning bullseye magic. The man says he has no right and calls it cruel, believing someone is forcing them to throw stones, and when they get hit back they complain it is wrong and want to finish quickly and go back. They shout that he's a worthless monster and that someday a hero will kill him. Shoto turns to them, confused. He thinks about what they said. People who try to do good and who gave him a chance at a new life wish him dead at the hands of a hero. The protagonist had hoped to handle this quietly, but he ended up adding some fire to it. People ask why it is so hot here. They see the roof on fire, and someone even thinks the Demon King has come back. The protagonist unleashes fire magic. Scorching heat fills the air as flames erupt in the sky, leaving everyone, including Brust and Cadian, shocked. Shodo pompously tells people to think about their behavior, saying they will do it in hell. People run away in horror. He laughs and demands that they burn to the ground while they think about their stupidity. She holds him from behind and tells him to stop. He agrees this is too much, Julian. She looks up at the sky and asks him whether he did it. Supposed to act normal, the main character suddenly grew angry, and a fireball about 100 meters across appeared over the city and raced through it like a maze until he removed it with a snap of his finger. The villagers seem to have gone back in time, and when the Demon King and his army attacked, the people were on the verge of death, so Brust asked what it was, and the man explained it was ordinary witchcraft. The protagonist reports these inhabitants are simply terrible and wonders how he can re-educate them, while Brust says their race really fought on the side of the Demon King. They can get everything they need by barter here, and that's the best they could hope for, the man says, discontented with what he's realized. The man says the demon army had many people. One of them says that's a lie. They are nothing like these monsters. There is no reason for people to fight for the demons. They do everything they can to shield themselves from the truth. Still, the main character is the same, believing only he is right and pure, and they are obsessed with money and power, making them hard to understand. The main character expects he will have to be involved in their education later. According to him, the local market is quite large for a village this small. The ogre said this place had become a staging post for traders, and the girl confirmed that caravans gathered there before moving on. Rumors began to spread that ogres had appeared. The boy rolled up his sleeves, but the man stopped him, turned to the old woman, and said they had come to trade furs and meat. The ogres said they needed fabric, and asked how many pieces the material they had brought would make. She said she'd pay for all 3 pieces, but he said that was too little, and that last time she paid the same amount for 1 boar. The old woman told him to be quiet, and, as the only one willing to trade with them at all, told them to leave if they didn't like something. The ogre said it was strange to give 3 pieces of fabric for 3 boars. The girl said 3 pieces can make 1 shirt. The protagonist felt Brusting Katrin didn't deserve this because good, honest people in that world are always robbed. Therefore, he must punish those who do this. The man pointed at the elderly woman and said it was a robbery. She said a young man like him could not understand much about trading. Using the banker's rank like a magic trick, he pointed out that it showed the market situation in the capital. The hero said they should get 15 pieces of fabric for 3 boars. She asked how she could be sure he wasn't lying, and noted that it's not far from the capital and prices vary. Grinning, the man asked whether that place was more important than the capital. The woman confirmed it was true. It mattered more than some distant capital. The place had its own rules, and he had to obey them. The girl turned to the main character, and he said it was good to learn the village mattered more than the capital. The man said the head of the capital's central market overheard their conversation using remote communication magic. The woman was surprised he could do that at that time in the capital's central market. The man said the economy was in complete disarray, especially in that backwater. They ran the kingdom of Hajimno's central market, which controlled all trade and sought. The old woman recognized him. Soon the other residents did too, and said it could not be. The guy turned to the man and realized the hero was using a call center. Insat told him he had crossed the king because of the princess and had run so far away that no one could find him. Shodo said it was a long story. If he asks him for help, he will tell the king about him and is willing to do this for Catherine and Brust. The man said he would tell him about the princess and the others later. That promise has not been kept. Insat is a traitor, so a promise to him is like a contract that must be kept. The main character said he wants to know what's happening with the fabric purchase. He asked how much it would cost if he had to pay in boar meat and fur. The man saw 3 wild boars there. He said the meat doesn't need to be processed for long and can be split into 2 batches because of weight loss. That makes 39 pieces of fabric at the current price. Brest said he had partly expected it to cost that much, and the girl was glad it would be possible to make many clothes. Turning to the man, the hero said they wanted to give them 3 sawn-off shotguns for 3 boars. They told him it was daylight robbery. Logistics and limited information sources affect prices in the borderlands. The gap was so large that these robberies were directly causing the economy to collapse. The man asks the protagonist to spread this everywhere and keeps quiet about his summons before His Majesty. One man said they had figured it out perfectly and would send the coordinates to him now. Another said he would go and check personally. The woman asked him to stop, saying their village would go bankrupt otherwise. Sat told the protagonist they owed him for killing the evil spirit Dalmat. Surprised, the woman asked about the Dalmat again, but the man was already saying goodbye. Domia Tuckland came up with the idea to boost the market and is worshipped by traders. She asked whether Mr. Delma was an evil spirit. He said he was destroying the country's trade relations and had sided with the Demon King, definitely human. The portrait still held demonic energy, and he believed the Dalma was using that energy to spread its influence across the country. They told him those were only rumors. They called him an idiot and said a human has no business in the demon army, and he said it needed to be dealt with. When Katrin asked what the hero meant, he told her to forget it and said they owed 39 sawed-off shotguns for 3 boars. The man asked the older woman about this, and she agreed. The hero said it was great the exchange had gone well, and when the man intervened, everything went smoothly. A woman came up to him, said she thought it was all a coincidence, and asked who he was because he could do magic and knew a lot of people. Catherine said it would be enough for 10 pieces of fabric so she could sew something for her father, but he told her to sew something for herself. The girl threw herself into the protagonist's arms and thanked him. His research had shown ogres were very strong, and he could barely breathe. He thought he was dying. The girl apologized to him. Laughing, the protagonist told her not to worry and to continue. Catherine said it was only because of him that they managed to exchange so much fabric, which seemed unbelievable. She was happy he went with them. The man said it wasn't okay to treat them that way just because they were ogres. Even while fighting the Demon King's army, the hero never treated any race as his enemy. It depends on each person alone. He said that if you simplify it a lot, it looks like that village. Brest had said earlier that long ago the demi-humans in the village were not as oppressed. Inspecting the place required contacting the kingdom, and the process was tedious. Defeating the Demon King had not made things easy, and he thought they had only grown harder since. He remembered the man telling him he had been very rude and would not forgive him. Laughing, the demon said he would show him what sort of power he had been given by the Demon King. He asked to see his true form, Dalmat, the evil spirit at the heart of the Hajmino kingdom. Their king invented trade. The king needs everything humans have invented to subjugate it. He only bows to beings with power. Since the heroes refuse to obey the Demon King, he will simply destroy him, the man who uses the memory magic projector. They began talking about portraits and wish fulfillment, while the paintings slowly drained their energy and sent it to the Demon King. The old woman said the Dolmat had tricked them. She insisted they were very wrong. Half humans aren't bad at all, and there are traitors among humans too. She couldn't figure out why something so simple confused her. The curse vanished the moment the hero burned the portrait. The old woman said she needed to apologize to the ogre girl. Once a skilled merchant, this stingy old woman came to be called too stupid by others. He landed the decisive blow on the demon. He said he'd forgotten to erase it. Residents soon realized he was a hero. They bow and ask him to forgive them. He thought it was a problem. Given what will happen to the Brusting Katrin, it's good the residents found out about it. Addressing the villagers, he said he was the hero Shoto and asked them not to talk about what happened today because he was hiding his identity. The main character pointed out they all still had a lot to learn. He spoke loudly so everyone could hear. The man said people can make mistakes. They can also correct their mistakes. Residents began praising the hero. He said it was good he had not burned the village, and people thought it was better not to anger him because he was scarier than Dalmat. He persuaded the residents, and they will also keep quiet. The protagonist sat down on the box inside. The man warned that if this continues, Princess Trapio will someday find out where he is, and he doesn't know what to do then. He tried to go back, but a woman stopped him, turned toward him, and told him to wait a little. The woman said he had restored the village to its former state. The old woman said she was sorry she couldn't thank him properly. He told her not to apologize. He now breeds birds as a hobby. The hero asked to take one from her. She agreed, but asked how he would get it across. He said it would not be a problem. The ogres were surprised by the eggs. Brust said he hadn't seen any like them for a long time. The girl asked where he had gotten them. The man replied that he was, then told the villager a story, and as a sign of reconciliation, they gave him a kalak and eggs. Hava Luckbird resembles a ground-dwelling rooster. The hero said he had made peace and that the villagers would never harm them again. The man asked whether he was serious. She called it amazing and thanked him. A woman suggested celebrating with an egg dish. The man called it a great idea but wanted her to keep a few, and Katrin asked what they were for. He said they would make them hatch into chickens. The hero planned to raise the hula lock chicks so they could get eggs for themselves. In that world, he tries to care for someone for the first time. Back in elementary school, he bred aquarium fish. They all died. He was determined to grow the egg. He forced himself to stay calm and said everything was fine because he was a hero who knew many spells. The girl asked him what had happened. She said he mentioned a hero. The man replied that nothing like that happened. He said he is now a cattle breeder and will work very hard. It's fine, he's managed everything on his own so far. While protecting his friends, he single-handedly defeated the Demon King. She turned to him, he told her to rely on him, then she asked if it was hard for him to handle everything alone. The hero forgot entirely that they were with him. The man said he wasn't sure he could hatch the eggs. He suggested trying one first, then taking the rest of the eggs. That was how he had been taught. The man agreed to start with one. The protagonist thanked them and said that when he lacked strength, he would know who to rely on. They told him they were always happy to help because he had given them a lot of fabric, and the villagers had become kinder to them. He is reliable now, comrades. You cannot lead a peaceful life alone. It is better to share it with a circle of friends. In short, the girl said the omelet was ready. The man was delighted and wished everyone bon appetit. Breast was surprised by how much food there was. Seeing many colors, the hero felt glad when yellow appeared. Regular access to eggs will keep plenty of food on the table. They are sure to hatch chicks. The hero asked Catherine to hand her an egg. She handed him a basket that held only one egg. He asked for another egg. The girl said everything was in the omelet. He had only one egg left. The boy didn't know what to do if the chick didn't hatch, and for some reason he felt everything would begin with him, so he carried a lot of responsibility. She apologized after accidentally spending all the money. She was determined to make as many omelets as possible. He told her not to worry and assured her everything would work out. He said one egg is enough. Shodo, a heroic animal breeder, uses his full strength. He will ask for their help and then gently lift the little chick. The hero considered the steps needed to plant the egg. The right temperature, a safe place, and a few days. Still, it makes no sense for him to stay at home the whole time. Keep the egg intact and warm. The girl asked him what had happened. He said he wondered how to hatch an egg without getting distracted from his work. Catherine said it would be difficult. She suggested using magic. The protagonist came up with an idea. Wanting to use magic, he asked the girl to hold the egg. The protagonist first uses frost magic and molten lava. He will create an iron barrier stronger than stone, then use gravity magic for finer control. Everything is now connected. The ball formed when magic fused. He called it the heat-preserving magic seed. Although he understands magic and magical repeats, he cannot give normal names. The man said he was using a magic seed now. Gravity is under control, and touching it lets you feel the magic of heat. He chose the blade as the final test. If the guy hits it with his ball, this blade can crush the troll's skull. The hero struck the egg, but it stayed intact. He was unharmed and very happy. She was glad for him. The man said she deserved all the credit. He found her blushing adorable, and she said she hadn't done anything. The hero said he would like to practice more. He still had to go to work in the field, catch him and wish him luck. Seeing the boy, the man said he thought the boy was busy with the egg. He asked what was on his head. An egg sat there. The protagonist said he had taken steps to prevent it from breaking. Brust said if the guy says so, there is no need to worry. Although his magic is meant for battle, this spell is stronger than combat magic and was created for peaceful purposes. A man cut down many trees and said expanding the field would be a good idea. Because relations with the villagers had improved, the ogre said they could get new saplings. The hero replied that they were one step closer to making buns. All that was left was to grow wheat. He said they needed to get started and asked whether the stump had to be pulled out, and the other man said he couldn't get it out even with all his strength. Taking a shovel, he said they first had to dig the earth around it, but the other man had already pulled it out with his bare hands. Using his hero power makes it much easier. The man said he always had to use a shovel, yet the main character pulled him out so easily, showing incredible strength. The man said it was just training, and from that day on he could call him a router named Shodo. Those stumps have long, thick roots, so they are hard to remove without a horse or an ox. The breast also started pulling out stumps. He did it on his own. Ogres are stronger than most other species. In his case, it's due to the level. A giant cicada hid under the stump, and this demon insect can attack people. The parasite tried to pounce on the egg, but failed. The guy said it was close, and that if he hadn't reinforced the egg, it would have definitely broken. The man said it was good that the hero caught it. The ogre said cicadas were delicious. The man was surprised that anyone ate those insects. Even a peaceful life could feel frightening sometimes. The hero said he'd gotten the hang of it and could now be called a skilled lumberjack. He said he was coming up with strange nicknames again. The other man said they weren't strange, and that self-hypnosis was proven to improve work efficiency. Surprised to see Insat, the hero told him he had an egg on his head and was doing something that made no sense again. A man said he went to talk to the villagers. The village was far from the capital. Another man was surprised. He decided to check everything in person. Inset said someone had forced him to do it, and the resident added that because of him, they had set out on the path to correction, and conditions inside were starting to improve. After his victory, he never expected to have to do this. Until now, the situation was unclear. It looked like they were negotiating with 1/3 of the Demon King's generals. The boy asked how that was possible. He described trading with a general as very bold. The man said it looked like the work of the subordinates of the Dalmat he had defeated, and though they were part of the demon army, they looked no different from ordinary people. Across the country it was the same. If this is a person, he can be trusted. The bitter truth was that the dominant political force and the generals were only human. He admitted it was a bitter truth. The hero asked the man whether he had received his message, and the man said yes, which explained why the hero had asked. As a friend, he said, he wants to ensure the former hero lives and does not cause problems for others. It is his duty. The man asked the protagonist to introduce him to the protagonist's patrons. Thanking the man who picked up Shoto, he asked him to look after Shoto. The ogre is surprised that the protagonist counts the outstanding head of the central market as a friend. The man said he had helped him a great deal once, and if it had not been for that man, he would have died. Brus said he was simply incredible. The ogre said the hero had saved them all, and his daughter began to smile more often. The man said spring seemed to have arrived for Shoto too. They began talking among themselves and said those two were dragging their feet. He thought it was too much. He believed he was surrounded by relatives who were genuinely happy for him. It still reminded him that he was unemployed. The girl said dinner was ready. When the girl came in, the man asked if she was the ogre's daughter, and she was afraid of him. Catherine said this was the man the hero spoke to using magic. The man said he would be scared too if someone like that came up to him. The man asked if he wanted to join them for lunch. His daughter cooks as well as the chefs in the capital. Ensat said the food was delicious. The man said Catherine cooks the best. The girl said that at first only she and her father were at the table. Then the main character arrived and the man joined them, and she was very happy. Ensat said he was shocked to hear the hero was hiding somewhere on the outskirts, and he hadn't expected it at all, but now he cannot afford to worry. He's a little jealous because he has to work every day, and the Demon King's defeat has only added more work. The man said he finally got to enjoy the peace that arrived today. The ogre suggested going fishing. Everyone thought it was an ambitious idea and decided to go ahead. The girl said the main character was clearly a skilled fisherman, and he laughed. He was sure that wasn't true because he had never fished and was terrible at it, and the man asked to be called Angler Shodo. Ensout said the hero had never caught a fish in his life, and the man was indignant. The girl then promised she would teach him. The man said there was a good spot that way. Ensout said the outside air was very clean. The man decided to take up fishing. He asked Catherine how to fish. She asked him if he knew anything. His answer was no. Then the girl said that as his older sister, she would teach him everything. He was surprised to learn Catherine was older than him. He said the girl was only pretending to be a teacher. She asked him to be quiet. He stroked Catherine's head, laughed, and called her cute. Catherine refused to teach him. Bowing, he apologized to her. The hero thought she resembled a Koryowin. The girl said to begin by taking a long stick and shaping it into a fishing rod. The man thought the weather felt very warm. It probably thinks the same, and he missed this kind of rest. To be safe, he cast a spell to wake him if the fish bit, since he was very sleepy. The magic worked, and the girl grew worried for him. The man said he thought the fish had taken the bait. A large fish bit the fishing rod. Having crushed the Demon King, the hero thought it would be easy. He told the fish he would catch it. The girl warned him to be careful because pulling too hard would be very bad. Spinning out, he finally crashed into the wall. The ogre was surprised to learn it was all caused by the line breaking. The man said he would give it his all regardless of what Shoto did. A group of fish grabbed the hero. Catherine asked if he was okay. He hadn't felt so foolish in a long time. He told the girl everything was fine, and he was completely calm. The main character declared he would catch every fish now and used freezing magic. The girl said he was not himself. She asked him to stop using his magic. He apologized, saying he had lost his composure. Catherine said it was good that he understood. He was rushing, she said, but it was his first time. Again the fish bit. The girl asked him to calm down. Once again the fish was big. The girl told him to watch how the fish would pull and offered to help him hold the rod. He pulled in his fishing rod, and a fish jumped out of the water onto the shore. It was huge, and the main character held it above her head. Impressed, they decided to fry it for dinner. The hero told Brust that simply summoning magical fire was boring. Brust replied that it wasn't, and that because it was quick, there was no problem. He suggested using telekinetic collision magic. They now had a fire for cooking the fish, a dangerous spell capable of destroying a city down to its foundations. The boy said that what helps the big can also help the small. He might be dangerous, so they should stay away. The man laughed. She apologized that he had to deal with the fish and told him he did not need to worry. Ensat said you first wait for the fish to bite, then you catch and eat it. By then he had already forgotten all those problems at the market. The vacation was wonderful. He was glad he had checked everything himself. He said it became even harder after one hero escaped. The man said he wanted to know what kind of hero he was. Laughing, she said they looked like good friends. The man said they had shared joy and sorrow with him in the capital. The boy said they had sat on a Dalmat's tail and then dealt with it. The ogre said it was impressive, like a hero. The man said he didn't need to invent a hero. He just thought he'd done a lot of amazing things like one. Shodo said he couldn't do anything complex at that level. The man said he didn't know what everyone was saying about him. It's good that he lives there and has nothing to worry about. The boy believed he was very kind, and after returning from the battle, he seemed like a fearless warrior. The man laughed when the fish escaped from the hero and then planned to freeze everything. Turning to him, the girl said the fish was ready. It was his first catch. After taking a bite, he found it very tasty. The man said he would not tell anyone that they had met. The princess suspected something was wrong. Doubting that Her Majesty could come there, the man told him to stop because it couldn't be, and his friends were surprised that he knew the princess. The girl watched the boy tending potatoes, and he told her he was a farmer. Deciding to fetch water from the river, the hero set off while she wished him a good journey. After filling the glass with water, he went back home and found a stranger at the door. The hero believed it was the first time he had seen him. The stranger said hello to him. He said he had heard there was a hero in a nearby village. Apparently the villagers talked about the hero, and the stranger asked him to calm down. He said he was no longer a hero, but a farmer. The stranger had a hard time questioning the inhabitants, but after giving a soldier a drink, he finally learned what he wanted. That's true. Later, for some reason they beat up that soldier, saying he wanted to destroy the village. The boy said he had kept everything secret until now and had even forgiven the villagers, while the stranger said he had come out of curiosity. He said he was talking about a book. It was titled Visiting the Lands of the Kingdom of Tugunner. The stranger had written that book. The man said he must be a real master because he managed to get it published, as if he were from another world, and the stranger said he preferred the title scientist to writer. While living in Japan, the main character bought many ebooks, grew to respect writers, and sent them reviews that included his own work and ideas. As soon as he did, his account was blocked. The stranger said the air there felt pleasant and humid. Then he could take off his cape. It turned out he was a reptile man. The girl called him a frog and apologized. He laughed and said he was a frog man in some ways. The ogre announced they had a guest. He noticed it was a frog. The girl asked him to stop. The man said a community of half-humans like him had learned the neighboring village was welcoming to beings like them. An outside group of organizations is trying to cultivate the land there. The man said he didn't know they were being discussed, and the stranger called it very impressive. Brust said they were persecuted in their homeland and had nowhere to live, so they had to handle everything on their own. The boy asked him about the chase. The man said people thought the half-humans were the Demon King's minions. At sunrise in the small Dacia Fascino, the wheat field was fully lit. It's true the duchy has disappeared. The girl said a strange light swallowed it and everything turned to ashes. The frog said they still don't know what it is and called it a tragedy. The boy began thinking about the duchy before it was destroyed. The huge ogre claimed to be an immortal duke, and planned to sacrifice all the inhabitants to the demon king in exchange for an indestructible body. You can burn or cut him any way you like, and he still won't die. He planned to turn them into a submissive army of the dead, replenish his immortal army, and then level the kingdom to the ground. The man used hellfire. The monster called him a fool and said burning everything would make it impossible for him to win. The flame was destroying his body. Knowing that letting him turn them into undead would only make things more complicated, the hero burned everything, though it felt excessive. The man said it would be great if their small field became larger. The frog turned toward the main character. He asked him to point out the field. The frog replied that the field was a stronghold of peaceful life. Working on the book taught him a lot about this area, and he really enjoys it. The man replied that if that was the case, he just had to show it to him and asked him to follow. He boasted it was his pride, but the plants hadn't started growing yet. The frog said the stems were weak. He said he drew this potato for his book. Compared with his potatoes, they now look more like beans. He asked whether he knew they were common in the eastern part of the country. The frog realized his plants were not getting enough nutrients. Some sprouts were still lacking nutrients. He was also overwatering them. He asked what the man used as fertilizer. The main character asked what fertilizers were. The frog said that from what he saw, the land was not suitable for farming and needed proper preparation with fertilizers. The boy said it was the first time he had heard about preparing the land. The frog asked why they had put him in charge of the field. The man replied that the hero grew potatoes better than anyone else. The girl agreed. Shoto replied that the frog had told him that, in a disappointed tone. They assured him they had done the right thing by coming and did not need to worry. The frog said he would make fertilizer. The boy asked why the frog seemed so happy when he said it. He said there would be more potatoes, so the protagonist said it was time to get started. A man asked what was needed to make fertilizer. The frog said human waste could be used as food. Simply put, he said it is what food breaks down into. The reptile asked where they had put all that stuff. The man said they had dug a hole for it. The frog said it was wonderful. He said straw, ashes, food scraps, and fish bones would work too. The girl said they would gather everything now. The boy was surprised that all of it could be used as fertilizer. The frog said that in the past people made fertilizer from whatever was on hand. Even with good preparation, the field will not be as fertile as the Duckeyes lands. Still, it will be a great place to grow wheat. The man felt inspired. He said this wheat field was his dream, and added that he dreamed of eating Ketron's stew with bread. Perhaps he can show Brust that same landscape again. The boy asked the frog to help them. Klolok said that because the hero asked, he would certainly help. He pointed to where the toilet is now. He said that whenever they dig a new hole, they move the cabin. Frog found that an interesting tradition. A man asked about his earlier claim that it would make the seedlings grow faster. Klolok replied that it is generally fertilizer. Don't rely on this alone, because it does more harm than good. It must be processed properly. They will need real courage for this. The protagonist pinched his nose. Klolok laughed and said that long ago peasant communities used to do the same thing. The boy said he understood that farming and living a peaceful life mean overcoming yourself and fighting every day. He volunteered to help as well. They finished. The temperature and humidity were ideal. He would make good fertilizer. However, a very unpleasant smell was present. When fermentation is complete, the unpleasant odor should disappear, and the scent will be similar to yogurt or alcohol. He said he understood and asked whether the fertilizer was supposed to smell good. They told him it was just their method, and that explained the unpleasant smell. The odor will fade after a while and should be much better by midday. He asked whether fermentation was a good method and was told it was simply the fastest. The girl said they stink and need to go wash up. The boy said his nose is used to it, and the frog said when that happens you can't smell it anymore. The main character said he's pretty good at heating water. Klolach replied he doesn't like boiling water and prefers it warm. He said he understood and could keep the temperature steady and heat the water to the ideal level. The frog looked surprised. One man said the hero heats water perfectly, and the other replied he just conjures well, which is much easier than preparing fertilizers. The hero claimed to be the creator of fertilizers. The frog told him they needed to make a beautiful field together. Klolok became part of their peaceful life. They sat down at the table and ate. The man asked if he had swallowed his food immediately, and when he asked how taste is detected, he was told frogs sense it with their esophagus. They enjoy their food as they swallow it. The hollow section contains an egg they carry with them that is similar in structure. It should hatch soon. The girl said she succeeded. She told him the guy had done a good job, that she had everything ready, and asked him to step outside for a minute. He asked what she had come up with, and she showed him his new clothes. Surprised, he said the size fit him, and he should show it to everyone. Clolock remembered that Catherine planted something yesterday. The hero's outfit fit perfectly. The girl said she sewed them to make sure they would not tear on the job. After he apologized, she said it was okay even if it broke. As the chick began to hatch, everyone was surprised. They kept a close watch on him. The egg moved, and the boy said the chick was hatching. When the egg finally stopped moving, they wondered what had happened. The hero said the chick would decide their future, and now everything depended on him. Physical strength magic fight lets you use tomorrow's strength today. She covered his mouth and told him to be quiet. She said the chick is trying his best now, and they can only watch him. The man said he understood. When a chick hatched, everyone was delighted. The hero said he'd faint at the sight of that cute look. His hands trembled as he reached for the chick. The girl said the chick decided its mother was the hero. Someone told him they'd heard that chicks mistake the first thing they see immediately after birth for their mother. Catherine said they should name him now that he is part of the family. The man replied they had waited a long time and hoped he would hatch. He began listing hope, dream, full aspiration, and victory. From that moment on, the hero declared the chick a victory. She said the name was too long and he would just be Toraimaru. She said, to be honest, the guy doesn't know how to give names or apologize. The hero asked her to stop and couldn't believe he was so pathetic. The chick was now named Toraimaru. The man said he'd raise a chick so they'd have even more hollow locks, and Clolock called it poultry farming. The hero asked whether the frog knew anything about it. The frog said it was beyond his ability. However, the frog knew that chicken manure made excellent fertilizer. The boy realized that once the chick grew larger, they could increase the harvest. In poultry farming, birds are at high risk of being eaten by wild animals. Not wanting such a cute Toramaru to be eaten, the boy decided to build a home for him. The man asked whether the main character planned to build a chicken coop. He recalled that as a carpenter, he had to do this often. The man specifically asked us to help build a chicken coop. The man asked them to rely on him and said he had done the right thing. Clolockham and the others discussed building a house and said they needed to gather enough wood, noting that if they plan to dig a canal for a rice field later, they will need much more. So one man suggested going to cut down trees. The man held him back. He said the trees used for construction must be dry. Otherwise they will rot while being worked, but trees in the forest need years to dry out. Now they buy them in the village. With the hero's help, they were able to sell the skins and meat, and gathering wood is much easier now. They arrived in the village. The girl said it would be great if the frog came along too. Vilok said the drive there and back felt like a journey to him, so he'd rather stay and look after the pitch. He told them not to worry and assured them everything would be under control. The main character told the father and his daughter to go to the market. The boy saw a grandmother sharing her eggs. She greeted him. He asked her to look because a chick had hatched from her egg. The woman said he was very nice and noted he was male. The boy said they had eaten all the eggs except the one that hatched the Toraimaru, and then asked her for an egg to hatch a girlfriend for him. The woman said she'd recently hatched a bird and would be happy to give it away. The man said she had only saved them. That day at the market, the ogres brought meat and skins to sell, asked the old woman to look over their goods, and she was surprised to see them. Beside them, the woman began searching for the hero. The man said they wanted to know how much the tree cost. The old woman replied that she first needed to examine the skin and the meat. She jotted down how much it would cost on a piece of paper. She asked whether it was really that cheap. He said the price was much higher than last time. She said demand in the capital made wood more expensive. She said if they didn't like it, they could find another place. The man said the price was fine with them. The old woman spoke about the tree. They said they needed only that. Then she asked if he planned to build a house, added the cost was high, and said they would bring the rest later. She will now deduct the costs of meat and skins, and of carts and donkeys, and treat the remainder as an advance payment. The protagonist arrived and asked how everyone was. The man asked if he had brought new chicks. The woman looked frightened. She gave an awkward laugh and thanked them for the purchase. The old woman said she would live honestly from now on. She asked about the protagonist's well-being. He told her to stop trembling when she saw him. The woman said she needed to find a tree, prepare a cart and donkeys, and make sure the payment was proper. The ogre turned to the protagonist. You said he still felt cheated. He didn't like when someone else benefited from a trade. If someone works there permanently, they receive no fair return. He asked the older woman what the regular price was, and she handed him a slip of paper with the numbers. She said they would need many things in that case. Since peace came, building material prices had risen everywhere. The old woman said they could borrow now and pay later. The man asked them to wait a moment. The hero approached the man and said he planned to take all his money. The man replied the bank was only for large depositors and told ordinary people to go to another bank. The banker recognized the man. Shodo asked him to stay quiet and just let him withdraw the money. He checked a table showing the current rate. The man said the rate was the same across the country. However, news took a long time to reach the outskirts. A man praised the princess. She replied she wanted to beat up the real one. She was told the hero's bank account had changed a lot. They told her it wasn't entirely clear, but he used magic and flew away at once. She said he took a lot of money, and she didn't understand why he needed it. Zot, who always worked, took a vacation. When asked if it should be returned, she said it was useless. She ordered the knight to go straight to Ensat, watch where today's deal for that amount would take place, and go there immediately. She laughed and said they'd be able to find the hero's trail. Then the girl can finally meet him. Shodo insisted they had to meet, and warned it would be a disaster if anything went wrong. He returned and said he was back. The hero set a bag of coins on the table. The woman said the hero had brought exactly 23 coins. The man asked whether she had determined that only by weight. He said this is the rate in the capital and refuses to work with dishonest traders. They expect the rate to rise tomorrow because of high demand. If that was the case, she said she would provide the cart and donkeys for free, and the man said he liked such gifts. The man said the hero had to pay a lot and told him not to worry about it. She was surprised by how much wood there was and impressed by Shoda. Believing the hero would raise a Hololok chick to tend the crops, she felt helpless. Someone turned to her. They told her that next time she came, she should bring clothes to sell, because the old woman would accept them for even more than the skin and meat. She asked whether she had made Shodo's clothes herself. The woman replied they were well made and right for working in the fields. There is always strong demand for such goods on the outskirts. Since there are no good seamstresses in the village, it's not a bad job. The woman said she would not insist. The girl replied she would definitely bring it. She asked why anyone would like her clothes since she was an ogre. The old woman said it was not her fault and that she had not paid her bills. The woman said the old hag's hair wasn't worth much, but she was truly sorry. When a girl brings clothes to sell, she waits because she thinks her items are worth more than everyone else's. Catherine Thankshire takes a bow. A man said she was funny. The girl said it was good to have peace now. The hero agreed. She said she was grateful to the hero who had killed the demon king. There was no need to worry anymore because he would defeat him again. Some said he was only a dragon slayer. All entities sensed the true demon king drawing near. Heroes and ordinary people were no match for the true king. After crossing 3,000 worlds, the demon king will descend to earth, drawn by their hatred.